Hey, this is Pat with Racket Stringing Tips, and today I'm going to go over my 5 top racket stringing screw-ups. Yep, I'm finally going to go over and reveal. I'm going to talk about the 5. Here we go again. This is going to be fun. We're going to go over my 5 top racket stringing screw-ups. And so I thought it would be kind of fun, not only to kind of, highlight those, but also it's going to be fun. Also, you're going to want to stay to the end because I'm going to also talk about something fun that's going to happen over the weekend. And so you want to make sure that you stay tuned till the end so that you can hear about that. So. I strung my first tennis racket back in 1991, so it's been 30 years now that I've been stringing rackets. And so I can laugh about these things now, but when these things actually happened, I don't think I was laughing. Some of them were, kind of, hopefully it'll be funny to you. They were, somewhat funny to me they're definitely funny to me now, but I can look back and laugh at them now. But anyways, I'll go ahead and get right into them. So we'll start with number 5. So again, all of these things were keep in mind that these all happened at professional tournaments and so forth. So I want to make that clear. Okay, number 5, here we go. This is going to be fun. All right, so the wrong hybrid, I wrote them down so I could remember in the order that I had them. Wrong hybrid pattern. Okay, so what happened here is this happened to me several times, because when you're at a tournament and you get rackets in for a player, you might have been stringing for the player already for a few matches or whatever, and you're looking at the card and it says, this is what you're putting in the main, this is what you're putting in the crosses. Sometimes you have reels to work off of, sometimes they give you sets. And so I think this must have been one of my first tournaments, or fairly toward the beginning of my stringing at tournaments. But so I look at this and I'm like, okay, I think I got it. And so what I did was I put the gut or whatever the string was that you normally would put in the mains, and so I went ahead and did that. And so then of course he had more than one racket, so I think it was 2 rackets that I strung with that. So I got them all done and everything. They were in the bag, and then of course the player picked them up and looks at them, and then right away he just came right back to the counter and was complaining and stuff. So it's one of those things. The players, for the most part, are usually pretty easygoing, understanding. But you know what? If you screw up on the rackets, I think they have a right to kind of get a little bit upset. This is a professional tournament, and so I felt like, I don't know. It's like when you're at a tournament and you don't know most of the stringers, because maybe these stringers come from all over the world. And once you've done it, once you string long enough and you kind of go back to the same tournaments over and over, you get to kind of meet some of these stringers, and you get to know them, and it's more of a family. But when you're new to it and stuff, everybody's kind of looking to see what you're doing and seeing how you're performing and all that kind of stuff. And then you screw up something like this, and of course they were set, so you couldn't just even if the player hadn't seen the rackets yet, and I saw the rackets and before they went out, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta restring these things. That kind of stuff happens. But if you have reels, it's not a big deal. But if you have to ask for a couple more sets from the player, then it's like, yeah. So anyway, so we had to cut them out, and then I had to restring them, promise them in an hour or 2 and stuff. So that's number 5, okay? Don't worry, they get better. All right, number 4. And again, I want you to be able to learn something from this, right? So in that case, always look at the specifics of what somebody is asking. Don't assume, because from your experience in maybe with those strings or that setup, you're like, oh yeah, that's what it is. Always make sure you look. And sometimes it could be they might be stringing one way and they'll string the other way because they want to try something new out. So you always gotta check. Never assume. All right, number 4. Okay, so this was back tennis. The Tennis Channel had a competition for the fastest racket stringer. So at the time I was living in California. So then I think this was happening in Las Vegas, and so I was also going there to meet somebody. This is when Wilson was putting together their stringing team, and so. I went there, I entered the competition thinking, oh yeah, I could string a racket pretty fast and stuff like that. They were computerized machines, so you're standing up on a podium, there's a bunch of people watching you, then you have somebody, they're obviously recording this for the Tennis Channel, and I think it was Luke Jensen, one of the Jensen brothers was the commentator, so he was all funny, making a joke out of everything, and so it was kind of fun, and so of course I was nervous, and stuff, and so I get my racket and I'm stringing, I'm going as fast as I can, and I look and I'm winning the round because the other guy was a lot slower, or not a lot, but he was slower than me, and then I got done with the racket, I grab it off the machine, and the clamp was still stuck on it, and that wasn't too bad because that wouldn't have disqualified me, so I'm like, I got this. And what happened after they checked the racket out? A misweave. Okay, by this time I've been stringing rackets for like 5 years, and I think I'd only misweaved a racket once or twice, and so to lose this by a misweave, I could not believe it. So that was, and of course, Luke Jensen, he never, or I'm sorry, it wasn't Luke, it was Murphy, just never, I mean, he was funny, in the way that, it showed up on the Tennis Channel video, but yeah. So anyways, that was like number 4. Okay, number 3. Okay, so at tournaments, many times when you're stringing the rackets, you're also stenciling them. And there's usually specific directions on how to stencil the rackets for the players if they're not the traditional company stencil. So, if they're sponsored by Babolat, what color and where it goes, so forth. But sometimes you have some of these obscure stencils, like maybe Kirschbaum, or they have dual sponsorship, so you have to move things around a little bit. And sure enough, I stenciled something wrong. I think it was the wrong color and a little bit, the placement. So we're like, that's no big deal. But of course, the player comes in, sees that, goes, you got to restring these. You didn't stencil them right. So that's one of those things that you're just like, oh, you got to be kidding. So, it ends up being a waste of time, and then a couple more sets of string, and you just look bad, and it's just kind of one of those dumb errors. So, always just watch those kind of things, every little specific thing, because players are particular about different things. It could be where the tie-off knots are, what side of the racket the tie-off knots are, how far does the tie-off knot stick out, what hole are you tying off, did you put leather pads on it? It could be a number of things, but so you got to watch that. Always look at the specifics. Okay, down to number 2. Okay, so this is a good one. So this is my first tournament. I remember back then it was called the Lipton. It was in Florida, and now it's the Erickson, and it's changed name a few times. But so I get there, it's my first professional tournament, and I didn't know any of the other guys there, except for, I knew one, but so you're kind of like, okay, you're at a pro tournament, you feeling like, yeah, I'm good, I know what I'm doing. And so I get these Fisher rackets from this player, and at that time the Fisher rackets, you had to string them a certain way. It said start mains on this side, and I was like trying to figure out why do I have to start them on this side. It's just I'm doing a standard pattern or whatever. But what happened is, if you don't start it on the right side, on the outside of the grommets, they don't seed the grommets because it has to go through a specific hole while it's going up and down the frame. Otherwise, you're on the outside of the grommets, and it looks really funny, and you could tell it's completely wrong. So I strung these rackets thinking, oh, yeah, maybe. I strung one, I'm like going, that doesn't, it looks kind of weird, but I didn't ask anybody, I didn't tell anybody. And so then I strung the other one just like it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know. I'll just put them in the bag. Nobody probably didn't notice that one. I don't know. Maybe it's not that bad, or maybe it's not even wrong. I don't know. So I put them in there, and when the player opened those things up, I think he was kind of laughing, and everybody else was pretty much laughing. and I just felt like a complete beginner. and, and it's one of those things where I should have taken care of it when I was first having the trouble, instead of trying to hide the error. And so, yeah, that was kind of a big blunder, and I think it took me a couple days to get over that one at the tournament. But yeah, you've got to ask. If you're not sure how to string something, ask somebody else, because most likely you're going to screw it up if you're not sure about yourself on that. So anyways, that was a good one. Okay, my top 5 blunder. Okay, so it was a small tournament. It was actually in China. I was stringing with a buddy of mine, and we had so we were the only stringers. It was tournament of 32. Again, this is going to age me, because the headliners were Marcellus Rios and Michael Chang. Okay, so of course it's in China. Michael Chang, big tournament for him. I mean, there's lots of people around, lots of, popular. It was a popular event, and so when you're the on-site stringers, you have to stay till the end of the last match. And we've been there a few days now, and long 15, 17-hour days, and so we're tired. And it was already after midnight. It was like 12:30. There was only about 40. There was like, I think they were starting the second set of the last match. And so we're like, okay, he hardly ever he's got a couple rackets. He's hardly ever going to bring a racket back. So we decided to get a ride back to the hotel. I don't think the hotel was that far away, but we decided just to get a ride back because we were tired. We're like, nah, nothing's going to happen. So we shut the place down and we left. And then as soon as we get going in the van, sure enough, we get a call. Where are you guys at? There's a player that he's sending a racket back because he needed to change the tension, because I think they just had changed balls, because they'll change every 4 games or whatever. And so he wanted a fresh racket. It was a long day and humidity and all that kind of stuff. So he wanted a fresh racket, and so I was like, oh my gosh. So we weren't that far away, so we could just go booking back, turn on everything, string the racket. I think it ended up that the racket got to him like with 5 minutes left in the match or something, and it just didn't turn out well, because when you are the on-site stringers, you're committing to being there with all of the matches and so forth. So that just doesn't look good for you. So I think that was like the number one blunder. So always stay. When you say that you're going to be there at a certain time, you just never know what's going to happen. So I hope you can learn something from those mistakes. I've seen a lot of other mistakes that people have made over the years, and I've made a lot of other mistakes, but I think these are the top 5 that I can think of that were kind of like monumental, or kind of meant something in the sense that they were kind of major screw ups. But I learned from them, and it's one of those things. I found this quote from Henry Ford, actually. The only real mistake is the mistake that you learn nothing from. Okay, so remember that. So from those mistakes, I learned a lot of things. And you're going to make mistakes stringing tennis rackets, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for your friend, whether it's for a client, or it doesn't really matter what's at stake. You want to do your best. You don't want to make mistakes. Learn from your mistakes, because if you don't learn from your mistakes, you're not getting any better. And the whole idea here is to get better. So hopefully those tips helped you to think about any little thing, and always do your best, and just learn from your mistakes. And so I did want to also share with you, we just hit 50 subscribers, woohoo! And so I'm going to do a live like Q&A racket string tips kind of hour live video this Saturday. So that would be the 24th of, what's today? Today's Tuesday, so it's the 20th. So yeah, the 24th, I believe, Saturday, and I'll have a post up for that, exactly for that feed. So if you like the content so far, you want to ask a question, you just want to sit and hear some fun stuff about racket stringing. I'm going to go over a bunch of questions and answer those, and just talk about stringing. And so join me for that. That's going to be fun. That'll be Saturday, and so I hope that was helpful, and again, please subscribe, like, share this content, leave a comment, all that good stuff. We'll see you next time.